Welcome back to another episode of In Systems We Trust. My name is Marquis. I'm your host, and today I'm speaking with Ann Carden. Ann has over 41 years of business marketing and sales experience with over 30 years as an entrepreneur. She has built seven successful businesses, selling five, and is the current owner of two, and has been coaching and consulting for the past 11 years and has worked with several hundred small business owners, consultants, coaches, and professional entrepreneurs in over 50 different types of businesses to further their success. Welcome to the show, Anne.
Thank you, Marquis. It's so great to be here. I'm so
Yeah,
excited to share.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect. I mean, I was explaining off air that we're supposed to connect a while ago, and I felt so bad about rescheduling, but we're
It
here now.
happens.
It
If you,
definitely.
hey, look, if you cannot learn to flex, you can't make it, right?
That's
So,
exactly it. We
mhm,
we, we want to be agile, right? That's
that's
it.
exactly right.
That's it. So I want to give you a chance, and just to further introduce yourself, talk about your background and how you really became an expert in the business growth and marketing space.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I love to share and really pour into other people. So, I started in business for myself after leaving a 13-year corporate career. I was in retail management. I was running multi-million dollar departments in a billion-dollar organization, and when I had kids and I did not want them raised by daycare, so we made the decision I was going to leave my career. Well, I also left my income, and at the same time, my husband ended up losing his job. So we made a move. We were living in California at the time. We made a move back to Missouri, which is where we're from. And we wanted to raise the kids around family and all of that. So I decided I was going to be a stay at home mom, which was really different for me because I had always worked, always since I was a kid. I've always worked. And we were just struggling. We were struggling. So I started looking for a way to make money. I fired up a little craft business at the time, a little craft doll business, which ended up going global.
Wow.
I was running basically a manufacturing company out of my home. I was in stores all across the country. I was shipping all over the world. It turned into a business, a real business. And the great thing is, like, I was able to employ a lot of other moms and help their families as well. So that was the start. That was my kind of my it wasn't my first business. My first business was when I was 7 years old. I
Right.
won't go into that, but that took me into, after about 7 years, I was designing my own line of dolls, and I was doing patterns. Went into the pattern market, and wasn't loving that so much, and I saw the industry changing. So you have to know when to kind of when to make changes, and so it kind of took me into my next thing, which was fitness health clubs. Started out teaching fitness classes in a community center, grew that into two health clubs, big clubs, two weight loss centers, was able to sell all five of those businesses. And I got into coaching because in the last 2 years, the last two businesses I had, I hired my first business coach. I didn't know business coaches before that, and hired my first one. She was so impactful to my business. It was such a game changer. I wish I would have had her all those years. Even though I figured things out, I did things the hard way because I didn't have that fast track help that we have now available to us.
Yeah.
And it was so impactful. I just knew, with everything I had learned along the way and what I learned from her, that I could do what she was doing. And so I really dove into business even more, into marketing even more, and sales even more, to get even better at my skills, to be able to help other people. And so that's really where it started. And I've been doing coaching and consulting about 13 years, hundreds and hundreds of people. And actually, it's over 60 industries now. It might even be more than that. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride, but so much fun. I love it.
It sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, when you started talking, it sounded like we were on an episode of Shark Tank, right? Like you just have so much experience. I'm ready to invest, right?
Well, it
Um,
really fits into what we're talking about, which is
yeah.
systems. Because the one thing I will tell you is, Marks, I couldn't have sold those businesses if they wouldn't have been turnkey for other people to come in and buy them and walk in and take over. And so I learned the power of systems, and not leaving anything to chance in your business, and have a business that runs like a well-oiled machine so that it can grow. And you're not, I mean, that is the secret sauce to being able to scale. It's the secret sauce to being able to sell. It's the secret sauce to keeping employees for a long time, is to have a business that runs smoothly, where it's not chaotic, and they love coming to work. I had employees that even worked for me for so many years that when I opened up the last two businesses that I had, they came with, when I sold the other
Wow.
ones, and they came with me. So there, I just am such a believer that that's the way you have to build. It doesn't matter if you're solo, it doesn't matter if you're a huge organization. It's
Such a
huge.
great, such a great outlook. When did you figure that out? Like, if we had to look at your first business, right? Like, did someone approach you and say, "Hey, you've got something great going on here. Have you ever thought about selling?" Or did you create the systems and then look for someone to take it over? Because obviously, like, a lot of that is either deep rooted in us, or we
Mhm.
figure it out by, trial and error along the way.
It's
Which was it for
trial
you?
and error.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
here's the thing. When I worked in corporate, I ran. So I said I ran multi-million-dollar departments in an organization. I was in high-level department stores, high-end department stores at the time, and I ran departments with 30 plus. Like, if you ever want to be tested with your leadership skills, run a cosmetic department with 35 women that are running their own cosmetic lines. Like, that will test your leadership skills to no end. You're talking about 35 prima donnas, 35, I mean, all with their own ideas. But that was one of the departments that I ran. I ran many through those 13 years. But um I learned systems in corporate because obviously they have to have those. So I think, but I didn't think about it that way. Like, I wasn't really thinking about things being a system. And then when I started my own business, I think to some degree, again, it was subconscious. I
Mhm.
didn't think, oh, I'm creating systems here. I didn't think about that. But when I had that doll business, for example, and I knew that I couldn't keep doing everything on my own if it was going to
Oh,
grow, I
yeah.
had to create systems in that doll business. So I would have somebody that would come in and cut. She would cut the patterns. I would have three or four moms that would come pick up stuff to stuff the parts, and then they
Yeah.
would bring me big bags of doll parts, that were stuff. So all of that was systematized. And again, I didn't think of it that way. It didn't really occur to me that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. I i would i knew that on this day I was shipping to this store somewhere in the country, and on this day I was shipping to this store. And so I would have to make sure that when the UPS truck came, those goods were boxed and ready to go. Everything had to be tagged. So all of that, I get, again, I figured it out, but I think at some point I was creating all of that. I just didn't realize it. So I don't know
Wow.
if that answered your question, but
It
I guess trial
absolutely
and error would probably be the better way to say it.
It absolutely did. Yeah, trial and error. And I mean, for you, like, kudos to you because you're one of those business owners that, and just to add some context, sorry, on a previous episode, I asked the guest, we were talking about the same thing. If business owners know that they need systems, they know that they're wearing all the hats, they know that, the business is on their shoulders, they know that they want to take a vacation, but they can't, why don't they take the time to actually put the systems in place? And so
Mhm.
for you, yeah, kudos to you because you were that business owner who had experience from the corporate side, but knew that it was important to start building these systems and you just figured it out, right?
Well, and it's
Day to day.
different too when you're working for someone else and you're working for yourself. Completely
Yes.
different. I was really not prepared for entrepreneurship. I don't think when I started my first business, I wasn't even thinking about I didn't have a vision. My vision
Hmm.
was I need to make some money. I didn't say this, but we hit such a point in our financial situation. It was so tight. It was so tough. I cooked from scratch. Like, every dime I could squeeze out of my husband's paycheck, I did, because I knew I was being called to be a stay-at-home mom and raise my kids. I knew that. But financially, we could not make the numbers work. It just wasn't working. And so there was a pivotal moment. My kids had been getting hand-me-downs from their cousins, so that was great because they were all about the same age. But there was a point where my 4-year-old son needed shoes, and we didn't get the hand-me-downs. We didn't get the shoes. Like, this is how bad it was when our family would invite us to come over and eat. I would be so excited because it was one more meal I didn't have to buy. I mean, that's how
Wow.
that's how tough it was.
Hmm.
So I sat down and I just really prayed for a solution. And I had always been kind of crafty, and I thought there was, at that time crafts were exploding across the country. It was an opportunity for people to make money. And there was a little store, and I thought, I'm just going to make some stuff and see if I can put it in there and see if she can sell it. So, but I hit that point where it was like, okay, I have to do something. My husband's got a job. He's got a fixed income. It's not going to change, right? And
Yeah.
even if he gets a raise, gas is going to go up at the same time, and he's driving an hour. And there was
Yeah.
no opportunity where we lived out in the country, and we lived outside of a small town, and there was just no opportunity. I had to create my own opportunity. The internet wasn't a thing. We didn't have that. This was
Yeah.
32 years ago. And when I built that business globally, I advertised in global magazines and international magazines. I ran ads. That's how that business grew. But it had to come because I made the decision, I've got to do something here. And I literally, I sat down and cried and prayed for a solution. And then I got this
Well,
idea. Oh, maybe I could make something out of this box of stuff I had. And it
right.
just evolved. Like I just took action. I prayed, I got the idea, I took action.
Amazing. Just goes to show how resourceful you are, right?
You
Like
have to be.
you
You have to
have to
be.
be. You
Yes.
have to be. Signs of a
Yeah.
true entrepreneur. So you've had several businesses, worked with hundreds of different, customers, coaching clients across different industries. From either your experience building your businesses or what you recommend for some of your coaching clients, are there typically like universal systems that have helped you grow your businesses and sell them that you prescribe or recommend to your coaching clients as well?
It's really going to be different for everyone. Different,
Hmm.
different companies. I've worked with everything from plumbing companies to roofing companies to, any kind of small business. And they all have different systems that they need. So in that sense, I would say absolutely not. It is going to be different for everyone, the kind of business they are, what phase of business they're in, how robust does that system need to be. So no, as far as like a specific system, but here's what I will say, and this is universal. You've got to have them. You've got to
Yeah.
have systems, whether you're creating something out of something manually. When I had my health clubs, for example, I couldn't be there every day to sell people that were walking in the door, right? I had to create a system so that my people weren't turning people back out the door, like they were closing them into sales. And we knew we had a schedule. We had a health club schedule, and we knew exactly what was happening when. And we had a weight loss center, and so we had to have systems to be able to coach all those people. I couldn't do it all. I couldn't build
Yeah.
big businesses and do it all. And so everything I used to tell people when I started coaching them in their business, I used to say nothing gets left to chance. Nothing gets left to chance. If you are putting out a fire more than once, you need a system. I
Yeah.
had a system for how to answer the phone when people called in. I had a system for how to give tours of our business. I had a system for how to coach people. I had a system for how we ran our classes and how we did things in the gym. I had a system. This is crazy to people, but I actually bought into a company where my trainers, my personal trainers, I didn't just leave them on their own to personal train. We had a system. They followed the books. They
Yeah.
followed the process and the system that I paid good money for.
Yeah.
And everybody trained the same way so that it didn't, if somebody had to step in and train a client, it was like, okay, I don't know what Jim was doing. I don't know where he is with this client. No, everybody was on a journey. We knew what their results were going to be, and we followed a system. And I kind of did figure that out, but I also learned that from going to some conferences and
Hmm.
learning about what other people had created. And so, I just, if you're putting your hands on something too much, that's a clear indication. If you're spending too much time spinning your wheels, you've got a problem. Take the time, fix the process, and it will save you loads of time. Like you just have to, it is part of business growth. You have to do it. I have, I can tell you a story real quick if you want me to.
Please. Yeah. I'd love
Okay.
to.
So I had a roofing company that I worked with, and he had hyper growth. Like we had had a season where there was a lot of hail and all of that. And his business grew by several $1,000,000 in literally a year. He didn't have the infrastructure and the systems in place. So what he had built up for years, this reputation, and everybody loved him and loved his company, and they trusted him. And he was one of the credible roofing companies, because there are a lot of them that aren't. And
Yeah.
but he was in hyper growth, and so he came to me and he said, "This is what I need. I know I need systems, but I haven't. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to put this in. This business has really grown beyond me." Is kind of what he said. Like he knew roofing, he knew how to get the jobs done, but what started happening is his customer service went way down. His business was breaking. Things
Yeah.
were falling through the cracks, and he had a lot of complaints. And that was not the way he was used to doing business. He had built a great reputation. So when we started working together, that was the first thing we did. It wasn't about let's grow. It was about let's fix what isn't working so that you are set up to grow. And I remember in literally, he was also, here's another thing, he was working almost 100 hours a week. He was
Wow.
exhausted. He
Yeah.
was very passionate about mission work. He was a Christian. He was very passionate about mission work. He was very passionate about golf, and he hadn't done them in like 2 years. And
Mm.
he literally was living his business, living it. So
Yeah.
in about 2 weeks, we worked hard to get that system in place. And it was a process. It was a pretty robust system. So there were going to be so many things that he would be able to do, as you can't do it all at one time. Just get something working, right? And
Yeah.
then figure out the rest of the system and what it's capable of doing. So we actually bought into a company, into a system. But I just remember literally 2 to 3 weeks, he started getting time back into his life. Now it was a nightmare for 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, he worked his tail off trying to get that system in place. But so he invested that time, and it wasn't easy for him. He had to try to do that around all of his other stuff that he had going on. But literally in 3 weeks, he got time back into his life. He
Oh, good.
started golfing again. It it just changed. It changed his life. It changed
Yeah.
his life, not just his business. And so now he had the infrastructure that he was ready, to be able to just continue on, add the team where he needed. The left hand knew what the right hand was doing. All of those things. He was able to actually sell that business for multiple $1,000,000,
Incredible.
within like the year. After we worked together a little over a year, and he actually was able to sell that business for multiple millions. So that's what
Incredible.
a great, yeah, that's what doing things the right way. So I want
No
to
kidding.
inspire anybody, if they're thinking, oh, I don't have the time to do that. You don't have the time to not do it. that's
Yeah.
really that's really where it's at.
I totally agree with you. Everything you said. I mean, you can't afford to not take the time to put the systems in place, right? Like that's why a lot
Mhm.
of us get into business. Like we're not getting into business because we love the work, we're passionate about the work, but the
Mhm.
goal, at least mine, I'll speak for myself, was not to continue doing the same things in year three, four, five that I was doing
Mhm.
in year one, right? Like that's not
Right.
growth, right? And
That's
then you're
right.
at the point, especially with your client, right? In the B2C service space, you see a lot of contractors, a lot of um, in-home specialists.
Mhm.
They're the ones, sorry, that are doing the accounting, they're doing the booking, they're doing the quotes, they're doing everything, they're doing the physical work. And so I will say I hope you're taking some equity in some of these clients that you're working
I wish I
with.
would have back then. It's
No
really
kidding.
interesting. And I was really taught those strategies when I came into the coaching space, but I don't do it for them. And so that's kind of the difference. I
Yeah,
I
okay.
just so I'm kind of considered a high fee coach, and
Yeah,
I just charge really, really well for my expertise, because I don't want to mess with all of that. Like, I don't want to mess with
yeah,
all of somebody's junk. Just pay me for my knowledge. If you go out and make millions of dollars from what I help you do,
yeah,
my heart is happy. Like,
right.
as long as my bank account's happy to go
Yeah,
with it, my heart is happy. So, I certainly can do that. And it's just not my thing. I
Mm,
teach it to other people if they want to do it, depending on who they're working with and how they're doing things.
yeah,
But the other thing I found is that when businesses really have that success, they don't want to write those big checks to you because they made all this money.
yeah.
So for me, it's just worked better to not do that. I'd rather just grow my own businesses. I don't need to be dependent on someone else's.
No,
That's
I
just the
hear
way I
you.
feel.
I hear you. I want to ask you a question, but I want to frame it a little bit before I ask it to you. You're talking about your customer and the fact that, you yourself, what we're praying, for this ideal life, and you went and you created it. There's a pastor goes by the name of John Mark Comer on the West Coast. He pastors a church out there, and he put out a book a couple of years ago now called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Right. And so he talks about, as a pastor, he was spending a lot of time getting caught up in religion and, doing things a certain way because he's always done it that way, and being at the events and being there for people, that he was just go, 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 writing sermons and going to the next event and being available for other people, that his life was getting out of control.
Mm,
So, like, the book talks about systems in a roundabout way. And so I
mhm,
was really attracted to that because that was exactly what I was looking for at the time, right? The name of this show is In Systems We Trust,
mhm,
right? In certain parts of the world, it's a different thing that we trust in, but um, the importance of creating systems allows you to, sorry, the practice of creating systems allows you to, live life on your terms, right?
mhm.
Things don't need to be chaotic anymore. You can get up in the morning and you can run your day and your time however you want to. And so there's a lot that you're saying that resonates with why I do what I do. But I want to ask you, like, if you had to distill it down to a couple sentences, like, why do you do what you do, right? I'd love to know.
Um, Two reasons. One, because I feel like all the years, all the blood, sweat, and tears to learn what I have learned, um, it can put people on the fast track to not have to go through all the mistakes, all the pitfalls. I mean, I think I said this the other day, and I haven't checked these statistics, but there's like 1,000 new millionaires every day, like in the United
Okay.
States.
Okay.
The last time I looked at that, we've never had that opportunity before, right? And the reason that's happening is because everything that we have available to us today, and so I feel like if I have something of massive value, I can't just not help people with it. Like I would always, I've been coaching people, even in all my fitness businesses, weight loss, all of that. I've coached thousands and thousands of people
Yeah.
because, and that fitness business started because I had gained a lot of weight in my first business. And I started losing the weight, taking control of myself and taking control of what I was doing. And I fell in love with fitness and nutrition. So then I went to
Hmm.
school for that. And then I started up just teaching classes. And my heart has always been, I want to help other moms feel as good as I feel. I want to help other people feel like what I have figured out here, what has changed my life because of how I feel. And every business that I have started, there has been a deep seated passion and reason for it. There's
Hmm.
been, I never thought, when you think about Simon Sinek and his why, I always thought, oh, okay. But when I really think back, there really was always a why to everything that I did. The first one was, we were struggling. I had to help my family. The second one was, okay, I want to help other people feel as good as I do. And even in coaching, it's like, wow, I've acquired all of this knowledge and these skills, and I could help people. I remember, that's a long-winded answer. That's probably long, but I
I'm
think I have,
following.
it really does come down to, it's my heart. It is my heart. I'm
Yeah.
always someone that I have missions that I care about, that I want to give to. So
Yeah.
I do not want to say it's only passion. I want to make great money with everything that I have invested in, whether
Hmm.
that be time, energy, money. I want to make great money because I have big goals.
Yeah.
And they're not all for me. They're for family, they're for missions, they're it's all of those things. Also,
Right.
I'm getting close to retirement age. Now, I don't know if I'll ever really retire, to be quite honest, but
Doesn't
I'm getting
sound like
close
you're
to
ready. You're ready. We're
that.
close to ready.
No, I don't think I ever will. My husband's like, "When are you going to
No.
retire?" I'm like, "Oh, when I just get tired of this." But even if I get
Yeah.
tired of it, doing what I'm doing, I'll probably still do something because
Hmm.
there is no way I cannot do something. I'll always be giving in some way. I'll always be doing that. I'll be volunteering. I've done lots and lots of volunteer work through my years, and I'll always be doing that. So
Mm.
it's just the way I'm wired. I don't know what to say.
That's a great answer. Yeah, like passion doesn't, explain it well enough, what's
Passion doesn't pay the bills. You have
right.
to have both. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell people that all the time. I don't, I'm glad you're passionate. I'm glad. Let's monetize it. If you can't
Yeah.
monetize it, you're not a business owner.
Right.
Don't confuse the two. There's
Yeah.
charity, there's business. Become wealthy in your business, and then you can do all you want with charity. And that's my
Right.
philosophy. It's not your business as a charity. It's your business is to build the wealth to support the charities and the things that you really care about. That's the way I look at it.
I love that. Well, let's talk specific. Maybe you can think of us like one customer. I don't know if it's the roofing company, but what does your approach to the conversation around change look like? You're very passionate about it. You understand it. You've gone through it. How are you then, taking these businesses and is maybe there's a methodology that you follow or a framework that you have, and like just love to understand that process a little bit more. How you approach it, how you communicate change and then get them on the fast track to growth and scale.
Yeah, well, I don't work with small business owners so much anymore.
Okay.
Mostly the people that I work with are coaches and consultants.
Mm.
That actually happened sort of by accident. I can tell that story. I was part of a business coaching organization, and there were a lot of gaps in their program. Though I got value from it, I'm not saying that. There were a lot of gaps in their program. They were teaching people how to be business coaches, but they weren't really doing a great job teaching them how to build the business for themselves. And everything was really designed to help these coaches get to their first $100,000, which, by the way, $100,000 is about a $40,000 income, just in case you want to know by the time you
Yeah.
pay taxes and what you need for your business, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that was their philosophy, and so most of their coaches were struggling, and I was struggling with their method. I was bringing in the wrong clients, very low value clients, not paying me a lot. I wanted their success more than they did. That doesn't work well.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I took a step back in my business, and I said, I'm not loving this. I'm not loving the clients I'm working with here. They're not ready for me. I can do so much more. I didn't feel fulfilled. Like I knew so much more than what they needed. And that's when I kind of restructured my business, and my business just blew up with what I does, really how I redesigned it, which is where my expert in you method came from. It's like build your business around your expertise. You don't need somebody's cookie cutter stuff. You need
Yeah.
to build your business. You need the right business model to build around your expertise. So I kind of cut away from all their stuff, and I started doing my own thing. And when I did that, they started kind of elevating me in the organization, like on their calls and stuff, like, look what Ann's doing. So coaches were coming to me and they're like, we need help. We need help. And I would see this company in particular was out to sell people how to become business coaches. But a lot of the people had never owned a business. Like when I started, they selected me. They said, because you've owned a lot of businesses, because you've sold businesses, we want you to become part of the organization. So I was really
Of
honored.
course.
But
Yeah.
as that grew and as I was with them, they started taking anybody and everybody. They started taking life coaches, and they started taking teachers, and they started taking people that had never owned a business. And so I saw this sort of shift, and I said, this just isn't right. You
Mm.
can't mess with people's livelihoods in business if you have no clue how to build a business. Like
Yeah.
just because you're learning their stuff doesn't mean you know the nuances and the things that it's going to take to help people build a business and lead them to success. So coaches started coming to me. I started working with them. I started taking them out, sort of out of that. And what was your background? What was your expertise? Let's build your business around that. And so it naturally
Wow.
happened. And when I made the decision, I was no longer going to work with small business owners, which, by the way, I do still have some that have been with me for years, but I don't market to them anymore. I quit speaking on stages live to get them as clients and doing all the things. And I came strictly online, and I started working only with coaches and consultants to grow a business. Because when I started looking at it, it was such a next step. Because if I can help a coach who's going to go out and help 20 people, I can impact bigger.
Yeah.
So not only do I help them change their life, and not only do I help them grow their business, they now can go out and they can help so many more people than I could ever help. So it was just it was such a great step to do that. And it took some figuring out. It
Right.
did. Coaches aren't the easiest people to work with. I just want to say
Yeah, fair enough.
that.
So is there a templated approach to it? It sounds like you're just having some really like, heart-to-heart conversations and getting to the basis of what's your experience, what's your
Mhm.
past like, and like what are you
Yeah.
passionate about, and like marrying those three. So it sounds really holistic and like it progresses naturally. So I'm just assuming it's different with every client you work with then.
Yeah, I mean, there is a method. I have a method, my expert in you. So I kind of have two sides to my business. So if someone, let's say they're leaving, they're a corporate CEO or a corporate operations person, and they know they want to start their own business, then I would look at everything that was their background, their experience. I call it career collateral. And I would say, okay, how can we now monetize this? How can we turn this into a business? So we have to create your revenue model. What are you going to sell, right? What are those offers? I have a what I call a top-down approach. Okay, because you've got all of this experience and all of this expertise, we're going to start you with really, really high fees because that's where you can really grow your business fast. A lot of people teach. The method you start with something very low and then you ascend people. I have a completely opposite approach. I've helped people come from corporate and start out with a $250,000 offer because they already had everything they needed. They already had the experience. They didn't have to go out and learn their thing. They just had to know how to build a business around it. So I have that side of my business where they're startup, but they've got I call them experts. They're already experts. So then I help them with the revenue model. What are you going to sell? How are we going to package this? Then I help them with the marketing. How are we going to promote this? How are you going to get clients? And I don't have a cookie cutter marketing approach. I teach scalable speaking. That's what I teach. That is I have a lot of ways they can speak and get clients and speak and grow their business. And so I teach them the marketing piece and teach them how to go grow the business and make the money. I teach them the sales piece because they have to know how to close those sales. And then when we get those are the fundamentals. When we get
Right.
that figured out, working, now we can continue to grow them, build their team, automate, uh, we put in those systems. Although we're putting in systems all along the way, so it's not like it's a separate thing, but then help them. How can you now grow this to whatever level you want? So how can we add on new revenue streams that don't take your time? They're passive. How can we add new layers and new levels to your business that leverage your time? So my whole goal is to help people build a $500,000 to $1 million and beyond business working part-time. That's really what I want to
I
help them
love
do.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is my method. So I do have a very specific method, but it's still customized for every client I work with because they're all different and they
Yeah.
all want to do different things. But my method is still my method, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
a framework work and a
I,
system that I take them through.
I love that. Thinking and hearing about what you're talking about. I mean, I got into the ops space years ago. I used to work for a very prominent Canadian fitness facility. I was a general manager,
Mm.
and I guess being
So we have some of
groomed.
the same background.
We do, right? So I was taking on some of the responsibilities of like the regional manager. I was having meetings with VPs, and that was the track that I was on. And so hearing about what you're saying, I mean, when I left that uh, that company, I probably should have gotten into, consulting for gyms because what they really taught us as a general manager, and I was in that role for 3 years. We never missed our sales goals because there were systems that were in place that were provided,
Mm.
by the corporation, and we trained on them. There were systems for everything: how we
Mhm.
ran our meetings, how we talked to visitors coming into the gym, who was up to take those meetings. We had systems for how we fold the towels. There was a
Mhm.
framework called Clean and Tidy that dictated how we put the weights away, how we clean the machines, how we
Mhm.
fill out our sales books and do our strategizing for the month and breaking down of all of our leads. And so there's all this knowledge I absolutely should have been in that space
I
because,
could have totally helped you package that. It's so funny as we're sitting here
yeah,
because you said we never hit our sales goals. That is your golden ticket to get people to buy.
we
All the
always hit our
other
sales
stuff,
goals. Sorry. Yeah.
I mean you always say, yeah,
We
you
never
always
missed them. There
you
we go.
never miss them. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, I
It's
I
okay.
heard what you said. I just
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't say it right.
Yeah.
But that is your pitch statement. Like that could have sold
Yeah.
that could have sold you over and over again. What a lot of people do is they try to sell their stuff. You don't sell
Hmm.
your stuff. You notice I didn't talk about my stuff. I talked about what is the outcome or the result that I help people get. And then you had to ask me, well, what is that, a system? Is that a method? What is that?
Yeah.
Because that's a mistake a lot of people make when they're trying to sell in the coaching and consulting space. But just from what you said, I could have totally helped you build that offer, package that offer, sell that everywhere because and it took literally that long for me to pick that out. But all that extra stuff that you do, that is the back end stuff that
Yeah.
gets them to that goal that you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's your system. That's your method.
Totally.
That becomes, but if you would have come in and said, "Oh, we help you put in systems," I would have been like, "Yeah, I don't want that."
Right. Right.
Unless
No, I
somebody
get
knows
that.
unless they're looking for that, right?
Unless they
That's the
know.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
so you do have to know what will sell in the market. And so all of that, even people that have been in business for a long time that have, they've had some success, maybe they've got their coaching or consulting business to that low six-figure mark, but now they can't go any further. Well, there's reasons why they can't go any further, right?
yeah.
And so you can kind of on a wing and a prayer get out there and make six figures. You just can do it if you just get out there and talk to people. Because I did that very, very quickly. But the
Yeah.
problem was I kept hitting that brick wall. I kept hitting
Hmm.
that ceiling. And that's when I had to really figure out, okay, if I'm going to grow this thing, if I'm going to do something bigger, then
Yeah.
I have to figure out what are the missing pieces here and what's broken and what's not working. But it was through all that process that my method came out of it.
Really.
And yeah,
Let's
so
talk about those missing pieces for a minute. I mean, maybe not in your business, but working with your customers, and we've probably already talked about them, but if you could bullet point some of those missing pieces or the common mistakes you see these
mm.
businesses are making, these leaders are making, what would the top three be, let's say?
Yeah, so a lot of times I did a lot of business turnarounds
Mhm.
when I was working with small business owners. And so there were a lot of times they were bleeding money, and I could go in and turn them around in about 30 days because I knew the
Wow.
levers to pull and I knew what to look for. Because by having a conversation with them, they would come to me. I would have it on my website, 30-day cash flow turnarounds. That's what I would have. I had that program on my website. Well, it was a lead generator. So it would bring me the people that needed cash flow turnaround. Now, sometimes they would wait way too long. And I'm like, I'm not touching that, right? I'm just not. I'm not going to but if they were in a place, if I could look at their business and I could see what the gaps were and I could quickly fix those things, and then I would help them. But we would get them to stop bleeding in 30 days, but then I would stay with them and help them fix the things that caused that to begin with. So cash flow was a big one, profitability was a big one, working too much in their business. I literally, all I needed to do was have conversations with people and I could find their problems. Like I could
Right.
totally see their problems. I
Mm.
worked with a plumbing company that he 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 kept telling he was actually a referral from a financial advisor that I knew, and he kept telling the financial advisor, I need a business consultant, I need a business coach. So but it took me a month to get the guy to even though we were texting, talking, he couldn't find the time, he could not
Mm.
find the time to work with me or even have a conversation. Finally, when I went in, I had a literally it was a 30-minute conversation. I said, tell me the problems. Why did you want to talk to me? What was going on? And he said, he pulls up his P&Ls, his profit loss statements. If people
Yeah.
don't know what that is, he pulls those up and he says, well, this is what my CPA says I have, but this is not how much is in my bank account. Okay, that was
Right.
problem number one. Problem number two was He was having trouble getting help. And part of that was because of the way some things were running in his business. Things were a bit, there was some chaos. And then I don't remember what the other thing was, but all I had to do was say, okay, would you like to fix those things? Like, how serious are you about fixing those things? And he said, yeah, I have to do it. I have to do it. So I wanted to fix the thing that I knew would make the biggest impact first. Was, okay, obviously the money's an issue for you here, right?
Yeah.
And so we fixed that first. And the interesting thing was, he had a really great business model. He was doing so many things right, which is how his business got to where it got to. But the one thing was, they were not collecting on the receivables. They were
Okay.
not. They had $250,000 out there in receivables that people were not paying, and they weren't going after them to pay. It was work
Okay.
they had already done. It was work they had already spent money to do. We fixed that so fast. We literally added hundreds of thousands of dollars to his bank account. We fixed the system
Okay.
so that that would not be a problem going forward. And then we were able to go ahead and help him grow his business. His business almost tripled in a year by
Mm.
just fixing that. So that's probably a long-winded answer, but all I have to do is I know enough about business marketing and sales to know where their problems are. So all I have to do is, just like when you shared, oh, I could have done this. I'm like, oh, that's what you could have done.
Yeah.
That comes from experience. That literally, it comes from mistakes, experience, and just working with so many people. I can just identify things so easy where people are stuck, where they're having issues. So
Incredible.
and then I just talked to them about that.
Wow. That's incredible. I'm curious to know how you fixed the receivables problem so quickly.
Oh yeah. Well, we got his office staff on the phone to
Yeah.
start collecting. We
Okay.
also made sure that his guys started collecting right on the job. So if one of the things we did, this is a great thing for people. So
Got it.
his people were not, they were kind of leaving it up to the office to collect instead of the guys collecting on the job. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that the office staff started asking is, will someone be there when our guys come in and
Mm.
do the work? Because they would go out and do a kind of an assessment, right? Or a bid, or this is what needs to be done, unless it was a quick fix. Will someone be there to pay? They were also invoicing, doing a lot of invoicing versus collecting right then and there. So we
Yeah.
had to just change the collection process. Why do you think you need to bankroll all the customers? They have credit cards, right?
Yeah.
They have bank accounts. You're a small business. You don't need to bankroll the customers. You don't need to invoice them. And so we fixed that. We just quit invoicing people because they clearly weren't collecting on the invoices anyway. We also, unfortunately, we had to get an attorney involved for some of the things to send letters to people. So those are things that actually I have fixed that problem in a lot of businesses because of the way they're trying to be the nice guy. But the problem is, they can't pay their bills. The problem is, they're working 100 hours. The problem is, the owner can't sleep at night because they're not sure
Yeah.
if they can keep their employees employed, which affects their families, right? So there's a bigger picture with small business owners. They're not wealthy. People think they are a lot of times, but
Totally.
especially if
Yeah.
they're running like a plumbing company or something, there's a lot of cost. I
Hmm.
ran brick and mortar businesses. There's so much cost
Yeah.
that goes into brick and mortar businesses. It's not like an internet business. And so, you have to take control of your business, and you have to say what you can and cannot do. And the first thing I get clients to stop doing is bankrolling. They also give a lot, like out of their heart. Oh, like, this person
Mm.
can't afford to get their car fixed and they need my help. Okay, look, I have the biggest heart of anybody, but you can't run a business like that. You
Right.
can't, right?
Yeah.
You have to decide if you're going to be a charity. Again, build your wealth, and then help those people. Have a fund or something where you can help those people. But if you're trying to grow your business and make an income and pay yourself and pay your people, you've got to be smart. You cannot build that way.
Oh, good. And I've so enjoyed this conversation. And I know we could keep going. I feel like I could extend the time for all of my recordings from here on out. Just keep chatting. Um, Last question for you. I'm just curious. I mean, If you had a message to share, and you've probably already said it, but if you could, tie a little bow on it for us, what would you say is the most important thing for businesses to consider? The ones that are struggling to grow, struggling to get out of the weeds. What would your number one piece of advice be if you had a message for them today?
That is so easy. You need to get a good business coach. Seriously. I mean, it changed my life when I got a those last two businesses I was in a new market, they were kind of I couldn't get them above break even though I knew business. It was a marketing problem. It wasn't a business problem. But you need to get somebody that knows what they're doing. They just like I shared, I can have a 30-minute conversation with somebody and find out I know instantly what they need. Like, well, as we dive deeper, there's other things we uncover, but I instantly know how I can help them. That's the kind of coach you need to be looking for. But I can't, we have access to that. Why would people not do it? Seriously, the investment is so worth it. Like you'll get your life back. You'll get money a million times over. I don't even know how to say it, but it is literally the smartest thing you can do in business, unless you are brilliant at business. But if you're struggling, you're not. So get somebody who knows what they're doing.
And I 100% agree with you. Yeah, there were times in the business where I needed that same help, and
Yes.
looking and hiring and investing in a business coach was everything, right? Changed
Hmm.
everything. And if you can't afford a business coach, I mean, there's mentors, but yeah, having
Hmm.
that outside help, having someone who has the experience is paramount to growing a business. So I
100%.
couldn't have said that any better.
And
And
that's why people are successful faster,
yeah,
because there are people that are sharing their expertise, helping
yeah,
people with their expertise. So, but make sure you check them out. Make sure you can tell when you have a conversation if
yeah.
there's this jittery stuff or if they know what they're talking about. You can tell.
Absolutely. And like you said earlier, you can help people shortcut, right,
100%.
to that where they want to
Yes.
go. So if they are looking for a business coach, and where can we send our listeners today?
Yeah, so even though I don't market to small business owners, or I will still work with them, so I don't want to make it sound like I just don't market to them anymore. So
Sure.
if you are looking for a business coach, I will just tell you my website is set up for coaches and consultants, but I do still have small business clients. So you can go to acarden.com and book a call with me. Let's have a conversation. If it's a fit, we'll talk about how we can work together. If it is not a fit, I have some great contacts and people that I can probably hook you up with that can help you. So, either way, you will get massive value from that call if you're ready to jump in and start working with somebody that can help you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Again, enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much for
Me
bringing
too.
your expertise and your insight and sharing with the audience today. Thanks, Ann.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.